$9. That's what the watch on your wrist cost. It's 4 minutes slow, has been for 2 years. You've never fixed it. The guy across the table is staring at it right now, mid-handshake, doing math he thinks is invisible. He's not wrong to look. He's just looking at the wrong number. Behind you, on a screen he can't see, a wire transfer just landed. 6 figures. Your name isn't even on it. He clears his throat, asks if you're sure you can afford this. You glance down at the watch. 4 minutes slow. Still running. You tell him you're sure. He has no idea what he's looking at. Neither did the last 5 people who asked you the exact same question. This is what it looks like when you spend 2 years making sure nobody ever finds out. You're 25. You split a 2-bedroom with 2 roommates you found on a Facebook group. Your name's on the lease, theirs isn't. That detail matters more than it sounds like it does. Days, you work the front desk at a property management office. 900 units across 4 counties. You process rental applications, late notices, eviction filings. Nights, you drive for DoorDash, not every night. Enough nights. You've got $22,000 in student loans. A watch that runs 4 minutes slow. A drawer in your desk with 3 packs of instant ramen, because lunch is a decision you don't always win. Nobody at that office thinks about you twice. That's the job, not the money, the paperwork. Every late fee, every default notice, every foreclosure filing. It crosses your desk before it crosses anyone else's screen, weeks before it hits Zillow, months, sometimes. Tuesday morning, a notice comes in. A duplex on Eastwood. 2 units, brick, decent bones. The owner's going through a divorce, missed 4 payments. Hasn't listed it, hasn't told a soul outside a courthouse file. You read it once, you read it again. Then you do something you've never done with a piece of paper that isn't yours to keep. You write down the address, not for the file, for you. You don't tell Marissa, who sits 2 desks over and thinks you're saving up for a used Civic. You don't tell your roommates. You don't tell anyone. You go home. You open your laptop at the kitchen table, the one with a wobble you've never fixed either. You pull up the county assessor's site, public record. Anyone could look, almost nobody does. The duplex is worth about $98,000 as is. The bank's owed $61,000. There's room in that gap. Real room. You don't have $60,000. You have $4,000 in change in a savings account and a credit score that's fine, not impressive. But you know something the next buyer won't know for another 2 months. Maybe 3. You know it's coming before it exists. That's the whole trade. That's always been the whole trade. Something people don't talk about enough. Money doesn't move first. Information does. Money just shows up late to confirm what already happened. You drive your DoorDash shift that night as nothing changed. Because nothing has. Not yet. You drop off a bag of Thai food to a guy in a doorman building downtown. He doesn't tip. You don't think about it twice. You think about Eastwood. Friday, you call a small local lender. Not a bank. A guy named Beckett, who does hard money loans out of a strip mall office with a broken sign. He doesn't care about your salary, he cares about the deal. You tell him what you found. He asks how you knew about it before it hit the market. You say you read paper for a living. He laughs, says that's the best answer he's heard all year. You hang up. You look at the watch. 4 minutes slow. You don't fix it. You go back to your desk Monday morning, and you stamp somebody else's default notice, and you say good morning to Marissa, and you eat the ramen out of the drawer, and nothing about you looks any different at all. That's the part that matters. You close on the duplex through an LLC, 3 letters on a piece of paper. Nobody types your name. You call it Eastwood Holdings. You pick the name in about 4 seconds. Nobody at the county office blinks. Nobody ever does. Beckett's loan covers most of it, $41,000 short-term, ugly interest rate. You cover the rest with your savings and a number you don't say out loud, even to yourself. You spend the next 6 weeks fixing the place up on weekends. New flooring in Unit 2, a toilet that finally stops running, paint, the color everyone picks because it photographs clean and offends nobody. You do the demo yourself. Gloves, a mask, a rented truck for $90 a day. Your roommates think you're helping a friend move. 9 days after it's rentable, it's rented. Both units, $1,400 a month combined. You take that lease agreement to a real bank. Not for a favor, for a refinance. It isn't clean. The first appraisal comes back $6,000 under what you need. Some comp the appraiser used doesn't sit right with you. A sale 2 blocks over, older roof, no updated kitchen. You spend 3 weeks pulling your own comps, emailing the appraiser's office, waiting on a callback that takes 4 days longer than it should. The second appraisal barely clears it. 98,000, right at the number the whole plan depends on. You don't tell anyone about those 3 weeks. There's nothing to post about a number that almost didn't work. The loan officer's name is Priest. Older guy, reading glasses on a chain. He looks at the rent roll, he looks at the appraisal, the second one, the one that worked. He does not look at you. He writes a new loan, 70% of value, 68,600. You ask him, almost as a test, if this counts as income, if you owe anything on it this year. He glances up like it's a strange question. It's a loan, he says. Nobody taxes a loan. You already knew that mostly. You wanted to hear him say it. Here's the thing nobody explains to you at 22 in a classroom, on a TikTok, anywhere. Money that shows up as a paycheck gets taxed the day it lands. Money that shows up as a loan doesn't. Not because it's a loophole, but because it's still owed. You still have to pay it back, with interest, on a schedule. It's not free money. It's just money the tax code doesn't count as income, because technically it isn't. The system isn't hiding this from you. It's just never in a hurry to explain the difference either. You pay off Beckett. Most of what you put in yourself comes back into your checking account by Friday. You watch the number land on your phone in the parking lot of the DoorDash restaurant queue, waiting on an order that isn't ready yet. You sit with it for a second. Then somebody in a Honda behind you taps their horn because the line moved and you didn't. You pull forward, you pick up the food, you drop it off. Guy tips $2 this time. You say thanks like you mean it, because you do. That April, your tax return says one thing: wages, front desk, property management office, 29,000 and change. Nothing else. Not because you're hiding a crime. Because there's nothing else to report. The loan isn't income. It never was. You fold the return. You put it in the same drawer as the ramen. The tax code doesn't treat every dollar the same way. Income, debt, and equity can all land completely differently, even when the number on the screen looks identical. Monday, back at the desk. Marissa asks if you're doing anything fun this weekend. You say not really. You are, technically, telling the truth. Cole posts a video on a Wednesday. Test driving a Tesla Model 3, white interior, sunroof open, caption says built different. 600 likes by lunch. You know Cole from college. Marketing major, always had the newest phone before anyone knew the old one was old. He texts you. Wants to grab coffee Saturday? Says it's been too long. You go. Small place near campus. The kind with exposed brick and oat milk written on a chalkboard like it's a personality. Cole shows up in the Tesla. Parks it crooked on purpose, angled toward the window so it's in frame if anyone's filming. He gets the oat milk latte. You get the drip coffee. Cheapest thing on the board. He looks at your watch for exactly 1 second. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't need to. So what's the plan, he asks. Not unkind. Just certain there should be one, and certain his version is the good one. You tell him you're figuring it out. He tells you about the lease. 36 months, $610 a month, 0 down, because his credit's decent and the dealership needed to hit a quota. You don't look Cole up. You could. 2 years of reading default notices and rent rolls has taught you how to find almost anything about anyone who's ever financed something. But you don't. Maybe he's fine. Maybe the payment's nothing to him. A rounding error against a salary you don't know. Maybe it's tighter than it looks, and he's one bad month from a call he doesn't want to take. You genuinely don't know. And that's the part that sits with you longer than any number would. 2 years of reading other people's paper has taught you exactly one thing you didn't expect to learn. You can't tell someone's balance sheet from what they drive. You can only tell what they wanted you to see. The difference between looking ahead and actually being ahead never shows up in the driveway. It shows up somewhere nobody's filming, and sometimes not even there. Cole asks, when you're getting a real car. You say the one you've got runs fine. He laughs, claps you on the shoulder the way you clap someone you've quietly filed under not there yet. You let him file you there. You always do. He posts another story before the coffee's even finished. Boomerang of the dashboard. 12 more likes in the time it takes you to pay for both coffees. Because you insist, and he lets you, because to him it's nothing. To you, it's 40% of what a tank of gas used to cost you 2 years ago. You remember costs like that. He doesn't have to. You walk out to the lot together. He gets in the Tesla. You get in a car that's 12 years old, paid off since your second year of college, and worth about what a nice phone costs. He rolls the window down. Seriously though, you good on money? You say you're good. You are. Just not in a way that fits in a caption. Dana invites you to dinner at her parents' place. Sunday, 6 o'clock, the kind of dinner where you're supposed to wear a real shirt. Her dad's name is Mr. Whitfield. Insurance adjuster, 31 years at the same company, the kind of man who says back in my day and means it as a warning, not a memory. You've met him twice before. Both times he asked what you did. Both times your answer, leasing office, property management, landed like a shrug. Tonight, before the food's even served, he's got his phone out at the table. Did some Googling, he says. Not embarrassed about it, almost proud. He turns the phone around. Your LinkedIn, job title, leasing assistant. No updates in 2 years, a profile picture from a wedding you were a groomsman at. That's it, he says. Not cruel, just certain. Dana's mom tells him to put the phone away. He doesn't. I just want to know my daughter's with somebody who's building something, he says. You say you understand. You mean it, actually. You do understand. He's looking exactly where he was taught to look. A title, a headline, a little blue verification checkmark that was never going to exist for what you're doing. What he's not looking at is a county assessor's website. 3 LLCs registered to a P.O. box 40 minutes from here, and a rent roll that clears $2,200 a month across 2 properties he will never hear the names of. He's not wrong that the search came back empty. He's wrong about what that means. A search engine only finds what somebody chose to publish. Most of what actually matters was never built to be found. Under the table, your phone buzzes once. You don't check it. You already know what it is. The 15th of the month. Rent, on schedule, into an account with a name that isn't yours on the door. Mr. Whitfield keeps talking, something about a coworker's son who just made partner somewhere. You nod at the right pauses. Dana catches your eye across the table. She doesn't know either. Not the number, not the LLCs, not any of it. That's the part you'll think about later, driving her home more than her father. Not what he thinks of you. What she doesn't know about you. And whether that's a wall you built to protect something, or a wall you built because some part of you likes being underestimated. You don't answer that question tonight. You just drive. Her dad shakes your hand goodbye. Firm grip. The kind that's trying to tell you something. You say it was great to see him. You mean that too. In the exact narrow way it's true. Jasmine works 2 desks down from you. Property manager, not leasing. She handles the bigger accounts, the ones with actual maintenance budgets. She corners you by the coffee machine on a Tuesday, phone already out, swiping through photos before you've said good morning. I closed, she says. Saturday. It's done. A 1-bedroom condo 20 minutes north. Granite counters. A balcony just big enough for 1 chair. She's glowing about it in a way you recognize, because you remember wanting exactly that feeling once. You ask what she paid. She says the number without blinking, full asking price, no negotiation. Her agent told her not to wait. Market's moving, rates might climb, somebody else will grab it if she hesitates. You don't say anything for a second longer than you should. Because you know that building. You processed a maintenance request for a unit 2 floors below hers 4 months back. You know what similar units in that complex actually closed for last quarter. You know it wasn't this. She paid about 8% over what the last 3 comparable units sold for. You don't know why. Maybe she just loved it the second she walked in. Maybe waiting felt worse to her than overpaying ever could. Maybe the agent's story about rates was even true. You've learned not to guess at people's reasons, only at their numbers. And the numbers say the comps told a different story than the one Jasmine walked away believing. You ask about the balcony instead. She shows you a photo of a single chair, angled toward a parking lot that catches decent light in the evening. It's a nice photo. People don't usually buy the asset. They buy the feeling of finally being done deciding. Whatever that feeling costs, somebody else always sets the price on it first. Jasmine's happy. Genuinely. That part's real. And it matters. And you're not about to take it from her over coffee by a vending machine. But you think about ownership, about Mr. Reyes's neighbor, whose name isn't public yet, whose foreclosure notice you read 2 weeks ago, whose house on the same street will list for less than what Jasmine just paid for something a third the size. Timing isn't just luck. Sometimes it's knowing what you're looking at before everyone else starts looking. Jasmine asks if you're still renting. You say yeah. She makes a face. Not unkind. The face people make when they think they're ahead of you and want you to notice. You let her have it. You always do. You go back to your desk. You open the assessor's site out of habit, not need. Eastwood's up 11% since you bought it. Nobody in this office knows that number exists. You close the tab before anyone walks by. Jasmine's still at the coffee machine, showing the balcony photo to somebody else now. You catch a piece of it. I just didn't want to keep waiting, she's saying. You understand that completely. You just never let waiting be the thing that set your price. It ends in October. Not over one thing, over what a future is supposed to look like from the outside. Dana doesn't yell, she's not that kind of person. She sits on the edge of your bed, the one with a frame you built yourself off a YouTube tutorial, and she says she needs to see something. Not feel it, see it. A ring wouldn't hurt, she says, or an apartment that isn't shared with 2 guys in their Xbox. Or a car her friends wouldn't ask about twice. You almost tell her. Right there. Almost open your phone and show her the 6 properties, the LLCs, the number that would change her whole face in about 4 seconds. You don't. Because telling her means telling everyone, eventually. Means it stops being something only you carry. Means the version of you that's been quiet and careful for 2 years gets traded for the version of you that looks, finally, like something people can approve of. You've never once wanted that trade. You still don't. Not even now. Watching her cry a little. Trying not to. You carry the last box down to her car yourself. You hold the door. She looks at your watch before she gets in. 4 minutes slow. She used to tease you about it, back when things were easy. Tonight she just looks at it like it explains something she's finally decided she's right about. She gets into a friend's car. Newer. You watch the taillights go. You don't follow them. 2 years since Eastwood, and you've never once chased anything you couldn't afford to lose. Turns out that includes her. That same week, your accountant calls. Her name's Priest. No relation to the loan officer, just a coincidence that makes you smile for half a second in an otherwise flat month. She says your portfolio shows a loss this year. On paper, she sounds pleased about it. Depreciation, she explains. The IRS lets you deduct a portion of what the building cost, spread out over decades, regardless of what it's actually worth today. It's not the market price going up or down. It's an accounting rule about wear and tear that exists on paper and nowhere else. And on paper, that deduction can turn a genuinely profitable year into something that reads like a loss. Both things are true at the same time. Nobody warns you how strange that feels the first time you see it. You can be right and still be alone about it. The system was never built to notice the difference. You print the return. 6 figures of real cash flow across 2 properties, and a tax document that reads like a man having a rough year. You almost call Dana. Not to prove anything, just to be seen once by the one person who left because she couldn't see it. You set the phone face down on the counter instead, next to the folded return, next to a drawer that's got 2 years of these now, each one thinner looking on paper than the last, each one worth more than the one before it in every way that isn't on the page. Rent clears on the 1st, the way it always does. You go to work Monday. Marissa asks if you're okay. You say, yeah, just a rough weekend. She doesn't ask more. Nobody ever does. Mr. Reyes lives 4 houses down from Jasmine's parents. You've never met him before this. You know him first as a name on a piece of paper, the way you know most people now. Notice of default. 30-year mortgage, fixed, written back when the rate was low enough that nobody writes rates like it anymore. 4 payments behind. Still mowing the lawn every Sunday so the neighbors don't ask questions. You knock on a Tuesday evening after your shift. Not in a suit. Just you. He answers, looking like a man doing arithmetic. He can't make work no matter how many times he runs it. You tell him you might be able to help, but you're not promising anything yet. You tell him the idea, in plain terms. Instead of the house going to foreclosure, somebody takes over the payments while the loan itself stays exactly where it is, in his name. At that rate, nobody gets any more. He asks if that's even legal. You tell him you don't know yet. Not for certain. That's not something you decide standing in his kitchen. Before anything else happens, you call an attorney. Not after. Before. You lay out the loan documents, the note, every clause in it. The attorney reads it line by line and tells you exactly what you expected to hear. Most mortgages carry a clause that lets the lender demand the full balance if the deed changes hands without their approval. It's real. It's enforceable. It's not something you can talk your way around, and you never intended to. So you don't touch the deed. Not that week. Not until you know exactly what the lender will and won't allow, and what happens if they find out and object. It takes 11 days to get a straight answer, and even then, the honest answer is that there's a real chance the loan could be if the bank ever chose to enforce it. You tell Mr. Reyes that. All of it. Not the version that sounds better. He's quiet for a second. Then he asks why you'd take on that kind of risk for a stranger. You tell him the truth. Because the rate is worth the risk to you, with your eyes open. Because he gets to walk away with his credit intact, instead of carrying a foreclosure for the next 7 years. Because you'd rather take a disclosed risk than chase something with no history behind it at all. Nobody loses here, if it goes the way it's supposed to. That's rare enough to notice when it happens. But it isn't risk-free, and you don't let him believe otherwise. It's a deal where the risk is written down, priced, and sitting on the table in front of both of you. Not one where somebody hopes nobody ever looks too closely. He signs at his kitchen table, after his own attorney reads it too, because you insist on that part. Hands not quite steady. There's a photo on the fridge behind him, grandkids at what looks like a birthday party. The kind of photo that makes a foreclosure feel like more than a filing. Sometimes the best deal in the world isn't the one you negotiated hardest for. It's the one where you were both willing to look straight at the risk before either of you signed anything. You drive home with a signed agreement in your bag, an attorney's letter on file, and a tenant already living in a house nobody's name has quietly slipped past a bank on. You think about Cole's Tesla lease, about Jasmine's granite counters, about every version of getting ahead that requires somebody watching you do it. This one, nobody's watching. But it's not because you hid anything, it's because you did the paperwork nobody thinks to do. And most people never bother finding out what's actually allowed before they act. You stop at a gas station on the way home. Fill the tank all the way, which used to feel like a luxury 2 years ago and now doesn't register as anything at all. The cashier hands you your change, watches you check your watch out of habit, even though you already know it's wrong. You don't fix it. You never do. You drive home in the dark, past 3 houses you own and nobody on this street has ever asked you about, and one you just spent 11 days making sure you could actually help save. 6 properties now. 2 years, 4 months since the duplex on Eastwood. You're refinancing everything into one commercial loan, which means an actual appraiser has to walk through all of it in person with a clipboard and a job to do. Her name is Nora. 30 years in the business, the kind of quiet that comes from having seen every version of a person's life hiding inside a set of walls. She spends 3 days on it, parks a plain sedan outside each address, talks to tenants, asks how long they've lived there, what they pay, whether things get fixed when they break. Nobody at your office knows she's doing this. Nobody in your life knows any of these addresses exist at all. 6 properties. $2.1 million in combined value if everyone sold today. About $700,000 still owed, spread across every loan you've ever taken out. The gap between those 2 numbers is the only number that's ever really mattered, and until this week, nobody's ever said it back to you in a voice that wasn't your own. At the end of the 3rd day, Nora sits across from you with the folder closed under one hand. She says she doesn't usually say the number out loud. Says clients get weird about it, one way or another. Then she says it anyway. 1.4 million. Net. Every building, minus every loan against it. Yours. It's a number that would end the dinner at the Whitfield's table cold. Would make Cole put the Tesla in park and just sit there. Would have changed everything Dana thought she knew the night she got into somebody else's car. You've never heard it said out loud in a room before, only ever seen it on a screen, alone, at a kitchen table with a wobble you never fixed. It sounds strange in the air, smaller than you expected somehow. Just a number, in a voice, in a beige office with bad lighting. Nora asks how nobody knows. Not about the LLCs, she's seen those 100 times. She means how you carry this and still drive a car worth about $4,000, still wear a watch you bought off a spinner rack at a drugstore for $9, still show up looking like a guy who's barely keeping it together. You tell her the watch runs fine. She laughs, says she's met exactly one other person who's ever said that to her, and shakes your hand a second longer than a handshake needs. 30 years walking through other people's houses, and she's still surprised by the ones who never once tried to look like what they'd built. There's a guy on your crew now. Theo, 22, sharp, handles the maintenance coordination across 4 of the properties. He's in the room when you sign the refi paperwork. Watches the whole thing. Can't make it add up. He knows what car you drive. Knows the apartment, still shared, still with roommates, because moving out never once felt like the point. On the drive back, he finally asks it. The question everyone's asked you in one shape or another for 2 years. Mr. Whitfield with his phone, Cole with his laugh, Dana with her one long look at your wrist before she got in someone else's car. Why do you live like you have nothing? You glance over. You ask him what he thinks he saw today. He starts to answer. Stops. You watch something go quiet behind his eyes. A number he's been running about you, about himself, about what doing well is supposed to look like, coming out wrong for the first time in his life. He doesn't say anything else the rest of the ride. You drop him off. You drive home alone. Past the gas station, past the street where Mr. Ray still mows his lawn every Sunday, past 3 buildings that nobody on this stretch of road has ever once connected to you. You check the time out of habit. 4 minutes slow, still running. You don't fix it. Some things you don't build to be seen. You build them to be true.